The F8 Tributo is one of those cars in GT7 that I was really happy to see join the roster, because even as far back as the 458 Italia in Gran Turismo Sport even, it's just such a lovely car to work with, and it's one of those cars that really won me over, because for the longest time I just didn't really care about the car, but it's so nicely balanced and such a pleasure to work with that it really does, well, just that, win you over. Then of course we had the 488 GTB, which kind of just skipped over Gran Turismo entirely, and we went straight to this one. The F8 Tributo, very similar design underpinnings, power of course is up, performance is up, and across the board this is a really strong car. I mean, to put this into perspective, this is working with stock, a similar amount of power to a Pagani Huayra, which is kind of crazy when you think about it. 710 horsepower, completely untuned, and nearly 700 performance points. 693, or a fraction under. That is really high for a road car on sports tyres. Now, it weighs 1,330 kilos, which is really healthy as well, even with technology in there, even being a modern, larger vehicle, large that is in comparison to like a classic sports car. That is a really, really healthy weight. I mean, even for something like a hot hatch these days, 1,300 kilos is pretty good because cars are so much bigger and so much tech heavy than they used to be. Of course, this is turbo aspirated, mid-engine, and fairly obviously rear-wheel drive, and it costs 330,000 credits. Now, unless I'm mistaken, I seem to recall you being able to win this car, I think from the Ferrari Cafe menu mission. Correct me if I'm wrong down in the comments, but I think that was the case. And to me, this is possibly, at least as far as the normal road cars go, the best new addition of a Ferrari in GT7. The F12 is great, but the F12 can be a little bit slippery, it's not quite as forgiving. This is a very, very strong car. Now I will say, it's not the most forgiving thing around, and with 710 horsepower, it would kind of be surprising if it was. But when you tune this car, that is really when it comes into its element. Now, speaking of tuning, I've actually done a special projects build for this vehicle, which I haven't yet released. I'm planning to release it sometime soon on the channel, to build an F8XX. And mine is tuned to 850 horsepower, 1175 kilos, and with those specs on hard tyres, it's running over 800 points, and it is savagely quick. But it also looks the part, sounds the part, and is every bit as fun as you would want something like an FXX, or a 599XX, or an FXXK to be. Now, the beauty of this one is that even if you just buy it from the dealership, 330,000 is really nothing in GT7. You can earn that even without grinding fairly easily. You know, a few events and you'll rack up that kind of cash pretty quick, and it is such a good car to use for a wide variety of events in a wide variety of levels, because when it's got 710 horsepower already, and when it's already this good to work with, and I'll touch on the handling a little bit more in a second, but if you, for example, just buy, say, a power restrictor and nothing else, maybe even the sports computer so that you can adjust the power as well, or the race computer, but even with just the power restrictor, getting this thing down to maybe 600 horsepower, where you're going to drop a ton of points, and again, be able to use it that much more. Now, I said earlier on, it's not the most beginner-friendly thing straight out of the box, and for me, there are two ways that you can notice that. One is the kind of, not quite twitchiness, but more so slipperiness that a mid-engine rear-wheel drive supercar will pretty much always have. Just some have it more than others. And to me, the biggest downside of the car, before tuning in particular, but even, funnily enough, when you have tuned it as well, is that it becomes strangely unstable under heavy braking. If you are up around 150, 160 miles an hour, and really slam on the anchors for a corner, it becomes very unstable, and it has a tendency to really pull to the left or the right, and that can sometimes throw off your line completely. So the key with using this car effectively, either with tuning and certainly without it on, normal sports tyres, is to be really smooth. Smooth on the throttle, smooth with the steering, and especially smooth on the brakes, which is a little bit different to what some of its rivals can be like, because some cars you can just slam on the brakes and you don't even give it a second thought. With this one, you do need to be a little bit more finessed, which is kind of appropriate because as advanced as Ferraris have become, they're still not really designed to be like a Nissan GTR. They don't do all the work for you, they are the kind of vehicle where the more respect you put in and the more effort you put in, the more the car will reward you. And the F8 is a perfect example of that because it is every bit as savagely quick as you would want, but also it's a car that does demand respect. If you try and use this thing like it's a, I don't know, Nismo GTR, then you're going to go straight off the track. But if you use it well, if you spend the time with it, if you put a bit of money into it, invest in tuning, boy is it one hell of a machine. Now overall it's so quick that if you tune it right, you could quite easily take on the Group 4 or even Group 3 458s. It's that fast. So ultimately I think most players have probably either won this car or bought this car by this point in the game, but if by some miracle you haven't, or maybe you're just new to Gran Turismo 7 perhaps, this is definitely one that you'll want to look into. It's a fresh face, it's an evolution of the 458, 488 platform, etc., and it's one which definitely both does justice to how great those are, but also definitely takes things to the next level. So I'd love to hear your thoughts down below if you agree that this is a great car, maybe if you disagree and you don't like the car. Either way, I'd love to hear about it down below, obviously, and for those who are interested in that F8XX build that I'm doing for it, which I've already technically completed, it's just a matter of recording it and putting it on the channel, then of course, stick around for that, and it is probably one of my favourites that I've done in this game so far. So ultimately, that's it for my thoughts on the F8 Tributo, and of course, stick around on the channel for more reviews in future. But for now, as always, thanks for watching.